Welcome to The Warp. I'm Jack Rita. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about some custom hazards that I had made and have added to my physical set of Cosmic Encounter. Two of them are alt hazards, which is a new type of hazard that came out in Cosmic Odyssey. And two of them are permanent hazards that remain in play until an effect says that they go away. But in this case, these never go away. So this is a hazard from Cosmic Conflict. So these match pretty well. I'm pretty happy with how these turned out. They're pretty hard to distinguish from the other ones. So it works out. It's pretty seamless integration. So let me tell you about what these hazards are, how they work. So we'll start with the alt hazard. So the first one is called redeployment. So the way this one works, and the way the alt hazard works, by the way, is that when you draw this, the offense can choose to forego their encounter and do the effect that's for the offense. And if they do, it will count as a successful encounter, and that's the end of that encounter. And if they do choose that, most of these alt hazards will have a slightly less powerful version of that effect that the other players then also get to take advantage of. So it's a way to kind of regroup and go, all right, what do I want to do? I don't necessarily want to attack that player. This might actually be more of a boon to me in the long term. So yes, back to redeployment. So if the offense chooses to do that, you may rearrange all of your ships however you wish among all of your colonies. Again, normally you don't get to do that. Drawing a card from the Cosmic deck for each foreign colony where you have at least 4 ships, the encounter immediately ends successfully. So the other thing is that a lot of times players don't have 4 ships on their foreign colonies because the foreign colonies, by and large, are generally pretty safe. You don't often have to worry about the system owner choosing to attack you to get rid of your foreign colony, because when they do that, they're giving up their opportunity to advance their score and get their own foreign colony. So a lot of times the offense is like, 2 or 3 ships, and then even if they had 4 ships, they're usually taking ships from those colonies to use in subsequent encounters. But here you are encouraged to do a redeployment because you're going to get some cards out of it. So if you do that, the other players, you may draw a card from the Cosmic deck for each home colony where you have at least 4 ships. So they don't get to do any redeployment, but if they have managed to keep 4 ships on a colony, they'll be able to draw some cards. And our other alt hazard here is satellite capture. So the offense chooses to do this. You may draw 3 moons and add 2 to planets in your system not containing moons or space stations. The encounter immediately ends successful, and you can do this even if moons are not normally part of the game. And if the offense does choose to do satellite capture, the other players, you may draw 2 moons and add 1 to a planet in your system that does not already have a moon or a space station. So it's one of those effects that brings in some element from another variant, which I enjoy. I like those little cross pollinations, little guest stars from other variants showing up. And then we've got our 2 permanent hazards. So the first one is TARDIS. So it's a Doctor Who reference, and I believe that I first noticed in Bill Martinson's Cosmodex, there was an entry for TARDIS, which was basically, there's no TARDIS, but there should be. So I was like, you know what? I agree. There should be. So this was my take on it. Bill might have a completely different TARDIS in mind. Feel free to make your own and let me know what your effects are. But my TARDIS works like this. When another permanent or semi-permanent hazard, and semi-permanent, those are the ones from Odyssey that have the yellow strip. When another one of those is drawn, any player may send one of their ships to the warp and discard a random card from their hand to cancel the card. It is discarded without the effect, and a new hazard is drawn. So it's just a way to give agency to players over some of the other ones, like the Cosmic Guardian or the Entropy Beast. And maybe like, I don't want to have that effect in there, and they can then get rid of that when it's drawn. So that's my TARDIS. It's fairly straightforward. It stays in play, and there's no effect that gets rid of it. The other one is the PRA. And so if you're familiar with the Eon edition of Cosmic Encounter and the 9th expansion, which added a special system effects on the backs of everyone's hexes. Everyone had a unique system, like the gas giant and the ringed planets. The effect for the back of the warp was to add a warp with a sub-warp that was called the Praw. And it had rules for if once a certain number of ships were in the warp, they would get sucked down into the Praw, and you had to get your ships out of the Praw into the warp, and then out of the warp into your system, into play. It's an interesting idea. Mayfair decided not to do the Praw. They did something called the Fan, which a lot of people just had a hard time understanding. It was not commonly used. I have a slight modification to how my Praw works, because I don't want to have to worry about all right, we're constantly counting all of the ships, and it's, 3 times the number of players, and you're like, I don't want to have to bother with that. So here's how the Praw works, and it's a hazard effect, and it stays in play for the rest of the game. At the start of each player's turn, for each foreign colony they have, they must move one of their ships from the warp to the Praw. During the offense's regroup, they may move a ship in the Praw to the warp instead of retrieving one. Any effect that frees ships from the warp may instead move them from the Praw to the warp. So like a Rift card, you can move stuff up. So there is no triggering the suck down into the Praw, which I know a lot of people loved that effect, and that's fine. But I just like the idea of making the ship resources a little bit more of a drain and more critical. You're like, if I risk those ships, my turn is coming up and I've got 3 colonies. That means 3 of those ships are going to go down into the Praw, and it's just harder to get those guys out from that area. So that's how it works. And I do have my custom playmat has a Praw area there. That's what that purple strip is for. Just to designate where do those guys go. So those are my custom hazards. I'll be making more because I'm really happy with how these turned out, and there's no shortage of hazard ideas, and I've got some other ideas for implementing hazards. So I like with the satellite capture, something that adds hazards to the game, or uses hazards in other ways that I want to experiment with. So let me know your crazy hazard ideas. Let me know what you think of these hazards as well. Yeah, keep playing Cosmic Encounter because it's the greatest game that ever was gamed. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.